Sound has the power to instantly transform the effect of a given piece of footage, from breaking fidelity with jarring sound-image juxtapositions to influencing the audience's understanding of a character's internal world. One interesting category within sound design is internal diegetic sound. This allows the audience to hear sounds which exist only in the mind of a character, and thus blurs the line that typically falls between diegetic sound, sound that's real in the story world, and non-diegetic sound, which is not. Director Darren Aronofsky makes ample use of this technique in his films Pi and Black Swan to discomfort viewers and develop characters Max and Nina's fracturing internal worlds. The two films manipulate sound image fidelity in their development of internal diegetic sound in order to truly submerge the audience in Max and Nina's disintegrating perceptions of reality and create two parallel stories of the brutal costs of unchecked obsession. From the very first scenes of Pi, internal diegetic voiceover develops Max's personality.
1245. Restate my assumptions. 1. Mathematics is the language of nature.
He's a number theorist driven by the quest for mathematical truth, more specifically, a 216-digit code which could hold anything from the key to stock market patterns to the true name of God. And as the sound design makes clear, he is cut off from the outside world. Emphasis on the voiceover, which is clearly internal diegetic sound because it lacks visual source, separates Max from his surroundings by downplaying external diegetic sound. We are barricaded in Max's head, and because of the clear-cut line between external and internal diegetic sound, we're perfectly aware of this. Black Swan begins with sound that's more external diegetic in nature. The innocence and rigid perfectionism that Nina must outgrow in order to embody both the white and black swans for her dance company's production of Swan Lake is initially demonstrated primarily through external diegetic dialogue.
He promised to feature me more this season.
Well, he certainly should. You've been there long enough, and you're the most dedicated dancer in the company.
But once Nina catalyzes her transformation by taking her first devious Black Swan-like action of stealing Beth's lipstick, she begins to experience hallucinations that stretch the bounds of reality with internal diegetic sound. The footfalls here maintain fidelity to the image, giving the audio credibility. As the doppelganger's face becomes clear, however, the sound flares up with unfaithful distortion and a high-pitched screech, shattering the sense of reality established by previous sound image fidelity. We now think we know the auditory tells of distortion which can reveal Nina's hallucinations. As the madness progresses, however, we find that this is exactly the sort of complacency the film wants us to have. Meanwhile, the internal diegetic sounds that build Max's internal world begin to become less explicit. There are still plenty of scenes peppered throughout where the internal diegetic sound is obvious because it lacks fidelity to the images. But as his mathematical fixation intensifies, there are scenes like this.
Are the stars out tonight? I don't mind if they're cloudy or bright.
At first, we believe this to be run-of-the-mill external diegetic sound. After all, we are accustomed to sounds from Max's head being quite obvious. But as Max turns, the image fidelity is suddenly shattered. There was no change in sound perspective to suggest movement. The man's disappearance implies he is a hallucination. The internal diegetic sound was inserted surreptitiously this time. This trend only grows, disorienting both Max and the viewer increasingly, as his obsession with the code and its meaning intensify. Black Swan also manipulates our expectations with changing sound image fidelity usage as Nina's embodiment of the Black Swan progresses. By performance time, Nina's paranoia toward her foil Lily results in a violent encounter.
How about I dance the Black Swan for you? Leave me alone!
The transition from Lily to Nina contains obvious distortion. The hallucination is overt. Even Nina's reaction is paired with distorted non-diegetic sound, the tell we found earlier.
It's my turn.
Lily's spluttering sound is faithful to the image, convincing us of its authenticity, and the sudden hush signals reality. Thanks in part to sound, we believe we know all that has occurred. Nina hides the body and goes about her dance, having killed Lily. Or not. It turns out we've been betrayed by our trust in sound image fidelity. By making certain hallucinations apparent, the film has guided us away from suspecting further deception, effectively trapping us in the delusion with Nina. By now, Max has also lost his sense of reality, having been hounded by mysterious figures in pursuit of the code, from shadowy Wall Street organizations to truth-seeking Hasidic Jews. The use of internal diegetic sound culminates in a final headache as the audience is treated to jarring, hair-raising screeching. The final scene shows a marked shift. The constant buzzing and thrumming of the score has subsided, and Max's voiceover is silent. We watch the trees as external diegetic sound takes a primary role for the first time.
How about 255 times 183? I got it! What's the answer?
I don't know, what is it?
Max is finally content. He gives up his pursuit of knowledge in favor of a much simpler happiness. As our sound design shows, he has escaped his obsession and re-entered reality. Nina, meanwhile, completes and perfects the final dance despite her mortal wounds. As she bleeds out, we may be tempted to assume this is diametrically opposed to Max's end, but an earlier line challenges this assumption.
The white swan leaps off a cliff, killing herself, and in death finds freedom.
In a way, this is Nina's version of finding peace, fulfilling her obsession and bringing it to a close.
It was perfect.
Although both characters attain some version of peace, they've made irrevocable sacrifices for their obsessions. After using intense sound design to wrap us in the characters' psyches, the films might have us ask ourselves how we would choose to end the cycle of obsession in their place. The merciful escape to uncomplicated happiness, or the fatal fulfillment of the compulsions that drive us.